Greetings, Cairn University. My name is Tim Bouffard, and my wife Amy and I are Cairn alumni. We graduated from Cairn University in 1989 with our undergraduate degrees. And I've had the privilege of returning to Cairn University to complete a few graduate degrees, and I currently serve as a member of the Alumni Council, which is a group of volunteer alumni who consult with and advise Nate Wombold, who is the Vice President for Alumni and Community Affairs. I'm a pastor in Berks County and glad to be connected to the Cairn University family. Dr. Williams asked me to share a brief virtual chapel video with you, and I'm glad to do that, but I would much prefer to be on campus. In fact, I planned to be on campus a couple of weeks ago to visit with a student, to connect with some alumni in the area, and maybe also with Dr. Williams, but all of that changed, as so much has changed over the last several weeks in our lives and in the world. And while some of the change is economic and obviously medical and social, we've all experienced relational change. And I think the relational change is as significant as any other change that we faced with this crisis. And if you're like me, you've been wondering, how do I stay connected with people? How do I stay in relationship with people when we can't be together? It's an important question. And maybe you've concluded, I guess we just wait it out and hope for the best. That's not really a bad thing, actually, when you think about it, because waiting and hoping are Christian virtues. We wait for God, we hope in the Lord, and waiting and hoping in God are good things. He's in control and we can trust him with everything. But in the meantime, it's important to answer the question, how do we relate to each other under these circumstances? And I think the Apostle Paul offers some good advice, some encouragement regarding that question in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 12, where he wrote this: "Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts and kindness." Paul also listed several other virtues in those verses, but I want us to consider just for a moment two things from this one verse that I think can bring some hope and encouragement to us relationally in light of the crisis we're under. But before we do that, I want to encourage you to think about 4 specific relational challenges that we're all facing. And these aren't unique or profound, and we could certainly add to the list. But I think they are challenges that all of us face, including students and faculty and staff connected to a university. The first challenge is that we're not physically together, and that is sad, and it's strange, and it's disappointing. We were made for relationship. We thrive when we're together, and when we can't be together, it isn't good. It's just plain weird. And some people are probably growing very tired of that. But it is a challenge that we're all facing. A second challenge that we face is that our relationships have largely been stripped of spontaneity and those unplanned, unexpected events and activities that so often define our lives. If you're anything like me, when I was a student at Cairn, you probably appreciate the spontaneity and the unplanned events and activities that occur day to day, week to week, month to month, throughout a semester. Some of the most meaningful times and conversations I had while at Cairn were unplanned, unexpected, and spontaneous. And much of that's been removed from us now, and that is not easy at all. A third challenge that we face is the fact that distance creates disconnect. Our relationships feel different. In fact, some of you may wonder if you are remembered at all, cared about. Is anyone thinking about me? Maybe it's been a while since you received a text message or an email or some form of reaching out from someone that you miss. All of us are experiencing the disconnect that comes from distance. And it's something that we can all relate to, unfortunately, right now. And a fourth challenge is the fact that we're isolated, not just physically, but relationally, in a variety of ways. To one degree or another, we have all experienced separation from friends, from classmates and roommates. We've been separated perhaps from a boyfriend or a girlfriend, from fellow believers in the church context, and even from family members. And that is not easy. It's so unusual. These 4 challenges are difficult and they're significant. They probably aren't going to change anytime soon. And so while we do wait and hope for them to change, we have to ask the question, what do we do? I think we need some hope and we need some help. And Colossians chapter 3, verse 12 offers that to us in 2 ways. First of all, it reminds us of how God relates to us. Paul said of God that we are loved by him and chosen by him. He pursued us. When we were separated from God, when our sin and our rebellion created a distance between us and God, he sought us out with his love and his mercy and his grace. And we can be grateful for that, thankful that he loves us that much, that he did not hesitate to pursue us through the person of Jesus Christ, his life, his death, and his resurrection. And that's who God is. That's how he operates. It's the very nature of God, to pursue and to love and to show his mercy and his grace. He becomes our example. During a time like this, we must pursue each other. We must initiate relationship because we desperately need each other. Somehow, some way, we have to bridge the barriers. Now, we might understand that that's true, and we might even take seriously the fact that God is our example in this. But the question remains, how do we do that, especially because of all of the restrictions from being together? Well, I think this verse offers us some practical help. It mentions at least 2, several more virtues that we can practice in a time like this. Compassionate hearts and kindness are needed now more than ever. And when we combine acts of kindness with compassionate hearts, we create a powerful influence for good in the lives of other people. So think about those 2 things. God is our example in pursuing us. He is the basis for how we relate to each other. And we need to look to him right now as our example. And it can be very practical. It needs to be very practical. We need to show compassion and kindness to each other and do that however possible, even though we are restricted. So if that's true, let's think back to those 4 challenges and apply these 2 principles to them. Even though we aren't physically together, we can be creative and consistent in staying connected. I encourage you to use the tools available to you to reach out to other people, whether, again, it's through text messaging or an email, a phone call, even writing a letter. Give up binge watching Netflix, turn off the news, stop playing video games for hours on end. Take some of that time and use it to reach out to other people. And don't hesitate to do so. Don't let a day go by without connecting with someone. And be aware of the people who might be very vulnerable during this time, who might feel particularly alone. Reach out to them. Secondly, even though we can't be physically spontaneous and connect relationally through unplanned, unexpected interaction, we can still be sensitive to the Spirit and spontaneous in reaching out to each other. If you think of someone comes to your mind, stop what you're doing and reach out. A couple of weeks ago, I reached out to someone that I hadn't connected with for over a year and a half. She came to mind because she works in the healthcare field, and I was concerned about what life was like for her right now. She's related to someone in our church family. So I sent her a text message, a short one, telling her I was thinking about her, I prayed for her in the moment, and asked her some questions about her job. She responded within seconds, and her response surprised me. She said, "Thank you so much for reaching out to me. You can't believe how perfect your timing was." It surprised me because I hadn't been thinking about her. No one told me that she was in need. I just responded to the Holy Spirit. But I shouldn't be surprised at all because God's the one who moves in us to reach out to each other. So don't hesitate. Even though we aren't physically together to experience those spontaneous times of connection, the Holy Spirit will still prompt us to reach out when needed. Listen to him. Third, even though distance creates a disconnect, it also creates a longing for and appreciation for each other. The Apostle Paul, when he was a prisoner for the gospel, wrote to several churches, and to some of them he said, "I'm grateful for you." He expressed his appreciation and how much he longed to be with them. That should be true of us now under these circumstances. Allow this difficult time to grow your hearts in appreciation and longing for each other. It's a good thing to experience. It's a good thing to feel. A few people in our church told me that they were glad for this situation because they were growing in their appreciation for each other, and they can't wait to be together again, to live life together, and for it to be more meaningful than it was before all of this took place. And the fourth challenge of isolation, relational isolation, that we're all experiencing in a variety of relational contexts is difficult. However, think about this. While you aren't with some people, you are spending a lot of time with others, probably family. Now, I'm aware that some people aren't with anyone right now, and I've been praying for international students and children of missionaries who are disconnected from family and so far away, that God would meet their needs and encourage them and lift them up. But most of us are spending an awful lot of time with family members now, and maybe you feel stuck with family and you can't wait for that to come to an end. Maybe you're in a family setting that's difficult, that's hurtful, painful, unhealthy. I want to encourage you that we can make the most of this opportunity while we're with family, unexpectedly, so much time with them, that we show compassion and kindness to them, that we allow God to use us in their lives, maybe to use this time to heal some hurts, to get through some difficult relational dynamics, to have some conversations that needed to happen a long time ago. Let's allow God to use this time for His good, for our good, and to grow our hearts in generosity, compassion, and kindness, remembering that He is our example. I'm praying that we'll all do that we'll move toward each other like God moved toward us, that we will love each other in such a way that we will do whatever it takes to stay connected, longing for the day that we can be together again. And until then, let's also remember that this is temporary. Hopefully we'll be together again soon, but we will definitely be together for eternity, and that's worth waiting for. God bless you.